Getting AI running in your business is already hard enough. There's so many tools out there that are kind of overwhelming. If you're not a technical person, you probably don't even know how to get started with AI agents, which seem to be the hype of this year. So in this video, I would like to teach you the 4 different kinds of AI solutions you can integrate into any business. And hopefully by the end of this, you will know which one is the next for you. The first kind of tools are the chat-based solutions like ChatGPT or Claude. These are also called LLMs, which stand for large language models. When using these models in a chat interface on the ChatGPT website or the Claude.ai website, these are amazing for back and forth kind of tasks. For example, putting together a contract for a brand new client. Because when you put together a contract, you have a certain input for that contract, maybe from a call. You also have a template, and then your final output is going to be the contract. But usually what happens is that you need to do a little back and forth with the AI and the person. Now, as every contract is different, because every project is different, you usually need to do a little bit of back and forth. And this is why the chat-based use is very, very good. Because you have your prompt, the AI gives you back a response, and you say, oh no, I want to modify this part. And then the AI gives you the modification, and then you go back and chat with it. Usually you are done with around 5 to 10 back and forth. You arrive at a really good output. This kind of use case is good if the task is clearly defined, like you know what you are looking to get. It only has a few steps, usually somewhere between 3 to 10, and it needs the human in the loop because you need to give feedback back and forth. The reason I love using Claude is that once you have done such a process once, you can ask it to make a skill, so then it can learn it and it can do this repeatedly with you. Skills are amazing if used well. They have a few security issues that I'm going to make a separate video on. So this is one of the easiest ways you can get started with AI. You're probably already using this. Make sure you get organized with your skills and your prompts, share those with your teammates, and make sure you convert your human SOPs into these AI SOPs, which are the skills. The next kind of AI integration that you can do are what I call AI workflows. Simply put, let's break these down into AI and workflow. We already talked about AI before with the chat use cases. Let's talk about what a workflow is. In a nutshell, a workflow always has a trigger. It can either be some kind of information comes in, maybe a new email, a form submission, a text message, a WhatsApp message, which contains some kind of data that is the input to the workflow. Then you need to do one or multiple tasks here. For example, for a form submission, you might need to add it to your CRM. You might need to ping your team on Slack. You might need to enroll someone. You might need to tag them in your email marketing. And all of these things can be done within a single workflow. So far, there is no AI here. And then these tasks will actually provide the outputs for this task. So the output for the CRM would be a new entry in your CRM. The output for taking an action in Slack is that there is a Slack message. The output for the enrollment is that there is a student enrolled in a course, and they can also trigger downstream processes. Like for the enrollment, maybe you trigger an email sequence. Same could go for the email tag. And potentially a new Slack message might trigger another workflow that starts with the Slack message coming in, and so on. So really, a workflow is a series of steps. These are very clearly defined, and they usually help to pass the data between the certain tech solutions that you have. Now, an AI workflow is if one of these steps is done by an AI. For example, one of the automations that I have and that I shared with my community is that if someone books a new call in Calendly, based on their questions, I want the AI to research this person, research their website, research their LinkedIn, and based on that research and what it finds from the answers that this person gave, give me a Notion CRM entry where the body of the Notion entry is this research document. To show you an example, this is how that looks. And in the Notion, this AI research was done, properly formatted into the Markdown format. And that's the research. Obviously, this is done with data. I'm not going to show you my customers' real information and their real questions. This AI step could be just one prompt. It could be many prompts in a sequence, or it could be an AI agent. This is still not yet what I like to call an agentic workflow. And I think as an industry, we need to get clear on this terminology because it drives me nuts. Here, if there's an agent in a workflow, the difference between a prompt and an agent is that the agent can make its own decisions on what kind of tools it uses. For example, it could query your emails, it could query your Notion database, or it could query the Circle community platform in order to enrich this research. Other agents in workflows might be able to do totally different things. This is totally up to you on how you actually set up these, what we call tools. And this is why agents are now growing more and more in popularity because of what we call this tool call accuracy has been getting better and better. And now it has reached the threshold where using these AI agents and giving them access to tools is actually working fairly reliably. There are still a lot of mistakes that these agents can make. So know that when you put an agent into a workflow, you are sacrificing reliability for flexibility. And I think this is a fairly good segue into the next kind of AI solution that you can integrate into your business, which would be the agentic workflows. I think currently for knowledge work, this is still in its infancy. Programmers have been using coding agents that do this exact agentic workflow. The idea is that you give a task to an agent like Cloud Code or OpenAI's Codec. And once you've given them a task, these agents can run this for many, many minutes. They can reason about solving the problem. They can pull files from your code base in this case, but you can use this for knowledge work as well. This is what I've been experimenting with. And it can actually create new files right on your computer. And then at the end of it, you will have an output. The difference between these agentic workflows and the chat-like use case where you also get an output is that these agentic workflows do a lot more planning, they do a lot more reasoning, and they can work with a lot more context. It's no surprise that coding was one of the first things to be more agentic. And the equivalent of Cloud Code for knowledge work for non-technical people is Cowork. It is fairly new. I'm preparing a video on how to actually use it for businesses, but there are a lot of security vulnerabilities that we really need to keep in check. Another big thing that agentic workflows in Cloud Code can do is that an agent, a manager agent, can now decide that it wants to spin up multiple agents in a team. This is called the agent team. And these agents can talk to each other. They can talk to the manager, and they can even talk to you, the user, if they need more input. If you are a person or a team who is highly organized, you already have the chat use cases nailed. You already have a bunch of skills that you want to put into these agentic workflows and run researches, implementation plans, building documentations. It is fantastic to see, but if you are a beginner in AI, I do not advise you to do this because as much as it will 10x your productivity, it will also 10x your problems. And if you're not organized, it's going to get real messy real fast. And last but not least, specific AI tools for certain use cases, certain roles. What I mean by this is tools that are for a very common use case that would actually require a lot of integration if you want to build it yourself, but startups are growing based on serving this common need. For example, a couple tools in my tech stack that I want to make a separate video on is Superhuman that I use for my emails. When I first installed it, it just learned from all of my emails. And now whenever I wanted to, it can write in my style. I honestly don't use that feature that much because I just prefer to write what I think, but I still use that feature when it comes to emails that are maybe not that important, or when it comes to auto replies. It reminds me to check in, follow up with people, and that's been very, very helpful. Another one I love to use is Whisperflow, which is just very, very good dictation that lives on my iPhone, lives on my Mac. So now whenever I prompt an AI, I can use Whisperflow. Or when I just write emails and text messages, I can use Whisperflow. And for the AI part, I find it a lot better for prompting because I tend to be a lot more articulate in my AI prompts when I use my voice to dictate than when it comes to typing, especially if I'm on the go. Another one that I love to use is Sambly, which is a note-taking AI agent. Comes to all of my Zoom calls. You probably already have seen or already use these things like Fathom and so on. They are all great. You pick what you like. The one thing that I like about Sambly is that it can actually put my action items into a Notion database so that I can start working with it and I can trigger my other downstream workflows that I have set up inside Make.com. Another one that I'm a big fan of is Descript, which is for video editing. I upload a video like this one right now. It transcribes the whole thing. I click on remove filler words like feel, like, and that I just did here. It also removes the long gaps. So anything above like 0.8 of a second, it reduces that gap to 0.3. So that way I don't have to worry about cutting out those parts. And I can simply edit the video by just changing the text. It's really good. I'll make a full video on it. And another example, just to not stop at 4, is Loom AI, Loom is not an AI tool. Loom is just for recording the screen share videos, but the Loom AI is actually really good at creating the SOP documentations. If I record a process and I want to share it with people, it can very simply create that SOP document. I can copy paste it under the video. I'm usually very transparent that I usually say this was generated by Loom AI, reviewed by me, or reviewed and edited by me, and it's totally fine. So these AI tools serve a need that most common businesses have. They are very, very easy to install. Usually you just sign up. There's like an onboarding. People have spent millions of dollars on optimizing this onboarding experience, so it's actually really good. The only downside is that these cost money per month, so they are going to increase your software subscription. But if you can justify for yourself that this saves you time, which means you can make more money or spend more time with your kids, I think that's a total win. All right, so to quickly summarize, I recommend you start here with the chat use cases, start building up your skills, start building up your prompt libraries. In the meantime, try a few specific AI tools. Give people in your team a small budget, like $50. They can try these tools. If it works for them, they can tell the team. If not, then it's not a problem. Get them to learn. Then once you're good with these, figure out where you are bleeding time and money and put together workflows for the very well-defined processes. And once those things are set up and they're running, that's when I would encourage you to experiment with Agentic Workflows. I'm making this channel for non-technical entrepreneurs, specifically in small businesses. So if that's you, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what kind of videos I should be making next. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.